On the surface, Shogun is a tale of war and power where deception encompasses every aspect of daily life. It's also a story woven through with deep philosophies that echo the human condition. Even though the date and time is never mentioned, the viewer gets a sense of feudal Japan's harsh, unforgiving landscape. And throughout the story, you watch as characters are guided or broken by 4 central philosophies that shape the world and the characters' fates. This is why we're exploring these 4 core beliefs. The beliefs that mold and move the plot forward from the shadows. These philosophies are the following: the 3 hearts, the Eightfold Fence, we live, we die, and finally, unless I win. So find a safe place to rest your katana and warm your udon as we turn the pages of this poetic masterpiece titled Shogun. We are first introduced to the philosophy of the 3 hearts, which is at the heart of Shogun, no pun intended. The 3 hearts teaches that a man must possess 3 layers to his existence. 1 heart for the world to see, another for his close companions, and the 3rd, his true heart, known only to himself. This philosophy is personified in Ito's leader, Lord Toranaga, who happens to be a Minowara descendant and the Kanto region's 5th member. Now, the Minowara clan is something of legend. It's depicted as a one-of-a-kind family that ascends to the rank of Shogun, which is why the other members of the Kanto region want Toranaga unalived. In an ideal world, Toranaga would be able to rule without the Kanto region's input, since it is his birthright to claim the throne and become the new sole Shogun after the Taiko passes away. But instead, there's always a but. But instead, the Taiko, who's on good terms with Toranaga, leaves the consular regis in power until his heir is of age to rule. Toranaga, portrayed by Hiroki Sanada, expresses he has no desire to use his ancestral family as leverage and employ for supreme power, vowing to look after the Taiko's young son until he's of age to rule. The heart Toranaga displays is one where he's adamant about remaining the Lord of Edo and nothing more. But there's always something more to Toranaga. He uses his understanding of the 3 hearts to navigate political landscapes. To his enemies, he shows strength and ruthlessness. To his allies, he reveals strategy and caution. But his true desires and fears, his deepest heart, is kept hidden. A mystery even to those closest to him. Toranaga's mastery of the 3 hearts defines his path to power, showing that in a world of shifting alliances, surviving means never revealing too much. He believes it's easy to be deceitful, and a wise man can also be deceived. This is why one of the lessons he teaches his son is that you only have yourself, and never let your friends get close enough to manipulate or alter your way of thinking. Rash and uncalculated decisions will lead to your demise, and your true heart is yours alone. Therefore, in this world, you are alone. The Eightfold Fence represents an impregnable wall that one begins to build internally as a child. It's a person's way of safely retreating emotionally under any circumstance. Men use this philosophy, but its full functionality is utilized by women as a much-needed coping mechanism since most of their lives are dictated by men. Mariko explains this more poetically, so after this video, check out her explanation. My interpretation of the Eightfold Fence is that internal stillness where you're present but disconnected emotionally, allowing your senses to connect to life's wonders. For example, Mariko and John Blackthorne's relationship. It's the embodiment of having as complicated as your relationship status. Since Mariko has to be a woman of many hats in a politically male-dominated world where a woman speaking out of turn can lead to unaliving. She has her motives, but her companionship with Toranaga allows her to move forward while deepening her resolve. Her entire life she has been treated more like a chess piece than a person, which causes me to wonder if she was always in her happy place throughout the story. She experienced everything from her family being shamed, converting to Christianity, being a translator, being beaten by her husband, to fighting samurai and forbidden love. As the world drowns her out, Mariko conducts her duties nonchalantly elegant, thus displaying how the Eightfold Fence is at its strongest when the stakes are at its highest. In Shogun, the atmosphere maintains a heaviness with gloom as its overtone. As the thin line between life and death is magnified, throughout the series it feels like anyone can suffer the fate of a filler character, because samurai live by a stark, unforgiving truth. We live, we die. To them, life and death are two sides of the same coin, and both are always present. The philosophy underpins the code of Bushido, the warrior's way. For characters like the daimyo, warlords, and soldiers, each battle is not just about victory. It's about accepting the certainty of death. This view of life is absurd to John, leading him and Mariko clashing over the understanding of life and death throughout the story. Nevertheless, there is one interaction that stuck with me. It's when Mariko mentions that life and death are the same, which causes John to rebuttal, but only one is permanent. John's statement caused me to revisit my beliefs of the afterlife. Even if we live beyond our last breath, it won't feel that way to those we left behind in the land of the living. For a moment, John caused Mariko's conviction to waver, but not enough to stray from her path. In Mariko's eyes, we live, we die is a cultural norm, a belief that she was raised in. See, Mariko is one of the series' most intricate characters, and her complexities turn out to be Toranaga's greatest asset. Toranaga knew how to keep Mariko devoted to play her role to the very end of the story, thus allowing his plans to unfold accordingly without him placing himself physically at the center of danger. We live, we die. Is central to Toranaga's leadership. He knows that no one man can rule forever, and he must be prepared to face his end. Every decision he makes is weighed against that balance, knowing that failure or betrayal means death. The viewer witnesses this philosophy firsthand through Mariko. Her willingness to sacrifice herself for a purpose gives her everlasting meaning. On the other hand, John is a person who would do almost anything to preserve his and those he cares about lives. For John, the philosophy of "unless I win" becomes a guiding force. He finds himself as a stranger in a foreign land where everything, language, culture, and power is stacked against him. Every breath he takes is coupled with overwhelming odds. He learns that to survive, he must adopt a mindset of total victory by whatever means, which is why John's outlook on life resonates with Toranaga. In every interaction, John fights for respect, for status, and for understanding in a society that views him as an outsider. The trials that he experiences weigh so heavily on him that he nearly crumbles to the point where Toranaga has to intervene. John starts the series with a light filled with optimism until Japan's power struggle strips it from him. He grows to believe leaving Japan altogether is the best course of action for his survival, and Toranaga, who adopted his philosophy of "unless I win," ends up being the final boss preventing him. In the process, John's goals fall from finding aid in Japan to help fight a war to simply retrieving his ship and leaving Japan behind. Unless I win, there is no path forward and nothing backwards. His journey reflects the individual's struggle to overcome adversity in a world where weakness and disrespect means death. An individual that is held down by the full might of a culture he knows nothing about. A journey that is only worth it if you prevail in the end. By now, you should be able to see how these philosophies shape the characters and poetic landscape of Shogun. From guiding their choices to sealing their fates, hiding one's true heart, fortifying one's emotions, accepting death's inevitability by writing wills and death poems prematurely, are all parts of pursuing victory at all costs. Shogun teaches us that life is a battle, both internally and externally. And in the end, how we live, how we die, and what we fight for defines who we are. There will be situations when people are forgotten before death, and in other cases, death is how others will remember what you stood for. And lastly, thank you for watching. This has been Shogun, The Art of Deception, and I hope you find it in your heart to go watch the series to see these timeless lessons in real time. Life comes and goes. Go out and live a story you want written. Take care.